Everybody, this is a William Henry EDC 6, and this is a fine little everyday carry pocket knife. This is the second generation of the EDC 6. There is also an EDC 10, which is slightly bigger, and this is sort of William Henry's budget offering. It is a really great little knife. There are a couple things that I'd point out that I'm not like super thrilled about, but having had this knife for about a month now, I can say that this is something that if you're looking for a fine gentleman type folder, or you want just like a high-end everyday carry knife, this is a pretty good option. I don't think it's better than the Nundy, and I'm going to tell you why, but it is super good. It is better than I thought it would be, and it's in large part because of how awesome Matt Conable's redesign of the button lock was. And you know, this is the sort of claim to fame. The thing that launched William Henry was his redesign of the button lock. So let me go through the knife a little bit. This one has a Cocobolo inlay, and as a woodworker I can tell you that Cocobolo is nice, but it's not super nice. It's not like mahogany, which would not make a good inlay because it's too soft, or lignum vitae, which would certainly make a good inlay, but it's impossible to machine, or bloodwood, or purple heart, or you know, like the Nundy I have has snakewood, which is extremely expensive by the board foot. Cocobolo is sort of a tier down from like the super crazy woods. Maybe it's in the same tier as purple heart, but it's well done here. It's well implemented. There is something of a seam. You can see it right here, especially. Unlike on the Nundy. The other thing is the Nundy uses a VHB, very high bonding, double-sided tape from 3M, and it's like super solid, never going to move, but there's no screw holes, and it looks nicer. And it's bigger. It's a much bigger inlay. It's, you know, probably 90% of the surface of the handle, whereas this one's sort of, you know, 60% of the surface of the handle. The rest of the knife is made of aluminum. This is an aluminum frame, not a titanium frame. The pocket clip looks like it's just plain old stainless steel. And here's an interesting thing, and this is why I said it's the second generation of this knife. Originally the knife came in D2, and it was like, you know, what is it? I think it's 275, 325, something like that. And it's a D2 knife, and I was like, oh man, that's so expensive. So I got the knife in for review after Knife Art kindly sent me this knife to as a review sample. I'm going to send it back. And I used it, and I was like, man, this just doesn't feel like D2. It cuts differently. It's not sort of getting that little bead of discoloration. I was convinced that it was not D2, but you know, I checked the website. I even checked Knife Art's website, and it still said D2. And I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. And I've had so many D2 knives, I feel like I can get a handle on D2. You know, it's like really toothy. There's always that like hint of discoloration. But this knife did not feel like D2. So I just recorded a whole review, talked about how it was D2 and how it was super expensive for a D2 knife. And then I looked in the box, and lo and behold, there's like a little certificate of authenticity. You flip it up, and it says that the blade is M390, which is one of my favorite blade steels. The M390 family with you know, CTS 204P and 20CV and M390. They're all sort of in that same family of a very similar chemistry, and it is great. It is a great steel. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. What doesn't make sense is the fact that they still DLC coated this knife. And it doesn't make sense for two reasons. Number one, it's sort of an unnecessary cost. But number two, this DLC coating, like many DLC coatings, is an absolute fingerprint magnet. Like, if there's anything on your hands, anything at all, like I just got out of the shower, even though I still have some black spray paint from Halloween costume making. I just got out of the shower, and it's still making those marks on it, because everything on planet Earth marks up this DLC coating. I will note that this is more prone to fingerprinting and smudging than any DLC coating I've ever seen. And you compare it to the DLC coating on, say, the ridiculous Cold Steel Espada, you can see that this is not clean either. But, you know, that knife I've been chopping stuff with. This knife, I haven't chopped anything with, and it's crazy, crazy, crazy fingerprint magnet. Let's see if I can get this thing to refocus again. There we go. So that's the one thing, that's the first thing I don't like. I don't like the DLC coating. The inlay is not my favorite. Here's another thing. So there's this texturing, sort of like machined in circles, and then cut, and then machined again, and it gives you like a very odd pattern. And it's not like crazy grippy, it's not too bad, but way back here, these last ridges, they're really, really sharp, like beyond like crappy jimping sharp. They're nutty sharp. In fact, the only thing that I can think of that's in the same category on a knife is the terrible diagonal thumb stud that some people think is awesome and is actually garbage. But that's about it. This is you know, my least favorite thumb stud design, and it's because it's so pointy, and this is just super, super pointy. So that's the third thing I don't like. But everything else is great. I mean, the knife weighs about an ounce. It's got a 2.6 inch blade, 2.5 inch blade. It's got a nice little almost hidden finger choil here, sort of like the original Gail Bradley Spyderco. And the pocket clip is awesome, super awesome, deep pocket clary. The one thing that I would say is, if you are going to DLC this, or better yet, don't DLC the blade and have it match this, because then you'd have the black, the Cocobolo, and then the silver. That's that sort of designer's favorite 70 or 60, 30, 10 split among the color. The three colors. Something, for some reason, people's eyes like that way of distributing the colors amongst a unified object. But this knife is really, really, really good, and it is entirely because Conable's design on the button lock. And here's the really cool thing about Conable's take on the button lock, and I've had quite a few, but none of them that do this. Ready? There you go. Let's see if I can show you again. First of all, it's super smooth. You pop that thing open all day long. But ready? Here. Ah. One more time. Because it's super cool. You don't see this on any other. Right. Right. There. Yep. He's got a D10. Ty uses a button lock, but he doesn't do a D10. Instead, you have to sort of overcome the pivot because he puts his flippers like way out here. Brian Ty. And Jeff Freeman doesn't have a D10 on his. He just has a sort of like a nudge that you have to get around. And once you do that, it flies open. But this one has an actual D10, and it is really cool. And what he's done, and I can't, there's no way I can show you, but what he's done, or maybe I can. Maybe I can. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. He's not just cut out the hole for the button lock. He's sort of dished it out so that as the pin rides in this thing, it sort of falls in. And once it falls in, let me see if I can get you real close here. So when the pin is going like right here, it kind of goes up this point and then falls in, and it falls in a pretty rapid fashion. And the way that this is sort of curved like a scoop of a shovel gives the sensation of having a D10. And in fact, it does keep the knife in. You know, most you know, there's some real resistance there. But if you, boom, do it the right way. The action on this knife is positively addicting. If you have a flipper fetish and it's because you like hitting that action over and over again, oh, this is good. You'll like this knife. So I'm going to do a review of this, but this is a video overview of the William Henry EDC 6, and I'd like to thank Knife Art for lending me this review sample.